Hey guys, it's Magnet here, and I'm going to be bringing you a Archon mode gamecast today. We're going to be taking a look at an interesting game here between Destiny and Kaitlyn, who are playing as the Red Archon, versus the Teal Archon represented by Puck and Brent. So, for those of you that don't know, Archon mode is basically a mode where two players play as one race. So if you can see here, these guys, there's two players playing this race of Protoss here. There's also two players playing the Zerg. So it's an interesting mode where it allows you to do a lot more things because you have two people controlling things, but it's interesting because you guys can be like fighting over control and stuff like that. It can get a little bit weird. So should be pretty interesting. So one thing you'll notice is that this is the default interface here for StarCraft. So I was trying to run the WCS overlay, and actually that does not work right now in Legacy of the Void. At least all the tabs and stuff don't work. Like I can cycle production and a whole bunch of stuff up here, but that doesn't work on the WCS one for Legacy of the Void right now. So obviously there's going to be a lot of bugs for a new game, but let's jump into the game here. Zerg is opening up with a hatch first, so they're going for pretty quick economy. And by the way, this Teal Protoss did spawn in as random, so the Zerg doesn't actually know what race this is, and they're going to get their first glimpse on a pretty lucky scout so far. The Red Archon team, as they would be known, comes in here and scouts the Nexus. These names are so random here, so I'm probably just going to be calling them Zerg and Protoss, but bear in mind who these guys are, and you can see them type in chat every once in a while. So the barcode, I believe, is Puck. I'm not totally sure about the account names for these guys. But yeah, hatch first versus standard gateway stuff. And I think the laugh here is just knowing that the red team is getting away with quite a bit of greed here. They could actually probably take a third base reasonably soon as well. And by the way, this is Legacy of the Void beta. It's only been out for 2 days. Kaitlyn is screen cheating. Wow, so BM. This has only been out for a couple of days, so nobody, in fairness, really knows how to play this game. So you can see all kinds of weird crap, but they also might not know the tempo that they can exploit here. So Zerg could very easily take a third now that they've seen this Nexus coming down, and they'll be at absolutely no detriment, and their economy will absolutely explode. The Protoss, unfortunately, does take a slower Nexus here, but you can make that work for you if you do go ahead and try to abuse some units. Haven't really seen anything new quite yet, though. Just a Stalker on the way, no Adepts or anything quite yet, which this should be showing me the cost here, but it's not. So yet another random bug here, but hopefully they'll get that addressed quite soon. Roach Warren on the way fairly early for the Zerg player, so, or Zerg team, I guess. This is so weird to describe. I've never actually described a team as just one player, but Roach Warren on the way here. This is likely for Ravagers, especially since they're still mining gas. However, no lair, and you do need that lair in order to start morphing these Ravagers. Burrow on the way, though, so this is kind of cool. Although it's only really going to be that useful if they get tunneling claws, especially since the Protoss is grabbing this Robo, so they should have plenty of detection on the way. Forge on the way as well, just to protect against any weird shenanigans, and especially depends on what the Protoss knows. So they know there are two bases here, but they don't know what else is going on. And oftentimes if you scout, this is the same in Heart of the Swarm, if you scout no third base, you know something weird's going on. So we're going to have to see how the Protoss player reacts to this. 8 roaches on the way, so you can see these guys morphing over here. Burrow will be not quite done by the time the roaches get across the map, but it'll be pretty close. So we're going to have to see how the Protoss is able to handle this. Really super fast robotics bay. And by the way, guys, the game timer is changed to represent real time now. So if you're looking at these times and thinking this is so weird, it's weird because the game starts a lot faster with these 12 workers, but also this is represented by real time. So we're seeing a Warp Prism on the way and Robotexes, or rather Robotics Bay. So this is probably going to be really fast Disruptor drops. Here come these roaches. Burrow is almost done, and the timing's going to line up decently well, but these roaches are stopping for just a second to collect themselves. This is going to be really annoying for the Protoss player to deal with, especially since they're making a Warp Prism and not an Observer. So you can see there are no Observers on the map. And, oh, I forgot about this. Tunneling Claws actually just exists on roaches by default. So I was saying before how it's not going to be very useful unless I have Tunneling Claws, but look how irritating this is. These roaches can do basically whatever they want. Disruptor on the way, still no detection. There is one cannon here to kind of help out, so the roaches are zoned out reasonably well, and a cannon coming down to the mineral line. Fortunately, these roaches didn't just go straight for the main base, otherwise they would have done a lot of damage while the cannon was not ready. At the very least, forced the Protoss to stop mining, but it looks like he's actually going to be okay. Disruptor's on the way, Lair on the way for the Zerg while all this is going on, so Roach is just trying to get whatever they can There is the detection here, so he can see these roaches if they burrow. This disruptor could change everything though, so we're going to have to see this guy activate. He's going to roll in there, these roaches, trying to split up, and it does just kill 3 roaches right away, and it does go ahead and get away. So this disruptor, kind of the hero of the game so far, doesn't want to lose that, and he did warp into the warp prism. You can see how far the pickup range is right there. Pretty insane. But this attack's really not getting a whole lot done, so the Protoss actually doing pretty well at holding this off for the time being. He's almost kind of ignoring these roaches. He's just like, okay, whatever, you can't really do anything, so what are you going to do? And the roaches just leave. Hydralisk Den on the way, as that lair did finish up, so that is the tech of choice, but the bigger thing is going to be this disruptor drop, and these things are pretty wild, so we'll see if the Zerg is able to respond to this, and I would imagine that Destiny is probably doing a majority of the workload here, considering he's a pretty high-level player. So it's mostly to see if at least one of them is paying attention, but the most, I'd say a lot of the macroing and stuff is probably going to be Destiny's responsibility. You can see the disruptor unload here, getting awkwardly stuck in the minerals. That's one really unfortunate thing with these guys, is they are pretty fat, so they get stuck on a lot of really stupid things. You can see that they didn't really lose anything, so that Warp Prism range really coming into play here. You can see the Warp Prism range is actually insane, so a lot of stuff you can do with this. Disruptor is almost off cooldown, absolutely no reaction from the Zerg, and it does activate it right now. If you can grab a couple of these Hydras and load back up, that'll be just fine. And the beauty with this Archon mode is that your teammate can be back here doing all the stuff that they need to do, while the other one can be focusing on little things like this that'll get you advantages throughout the game. So a lot of really cool stuff can be done with all the new stuff that they got. A little bit of a drone transfer here, nothing too important happening right now, although the Protoss is taking a third base. Infestation pit on the way for the Zerg. Really, I don't know what this is going to be for. Likely swarm host, but we're going to have to see, unless it is a super fast hive, but I really doubt that considering there's not very much gas being mined at the moment for the Zerg. Where is that warp prism? It looks like he actually lost it, so the Protoss player did lose that warp prism. I don't think any extra drones dropped. So yeah, only 2 drones down, not too much work getting done with that. And this probe looks like it's just patrolling around for hidden bases or something. I'm not really sure what they're doing, but not too much loss there anyway. By the way, something else that's really weird with Legacy of the Void right now is that if you can see where my mouse is here on the screen, you can barely see that Overlord on the minimap. There's like some weird transparency issues on the minimap where there's sometimes you just literally can't see it at all, even though there's something there. So I was kind of getting confused a little bit by that. As we suspected, there are swarm hosts on the way, and by the way, flying locust research on the way as well. Here's another warp prism with 2 disruptors heading out on the map right now to see what it can get done. And the good thing with Archon mode is that these games are probably just going to be non-stop action, so it should be a pretty cool mode to observe here in the future. 1 disruptor goes down, 2 of them, he just turns them both on, and these units are just like, well, we don't really have a choice here, so they just all get wasted, and everything gets picked up. The weird thing from the Protoss is that he doesn't actually have that many units. He has 3 disruptors, 2 sentries, and 6 stalkers, and that's pretty much it. And he's even thinking about taking a 4th base here once they start to go ahead and push out. And when I say he, I mean the collection of team between these guys. So you'll probably see me mistakenly refer to that all the time. These swarm hosts should be ready. They're kind of just AFK as well as the rest of the units right now. So you hope that he doesn't get too much done. I didn't see what happened over here. I don't think anything really got killed, except for maybe a couple of Hydras or something. But some force fields coming up here. He should be able to get this base and recall out if it really is demanded. So there's the next, or rather the hatchery going down and the recall. The swarm hosts are out though, and they are being a little bit annoying. And this is what I mean. Look at the minimap. I can't even see these things on the minimap. It's really strange sensation to just see these like nothings making these blobs of vision. So that's pretty hard to see. That almost feels like a bug to me, or maybe just an unintended consequence of changing something they didn't mean to. But it's super hard to tell that things are on the minimap right now, especially if it's red. So Protoss starting to get more into oracles, getting the +2 attack upgrades. On the other side of the map, more Hydras coming out. I wonder if we're going to see things like lurkers. I would imagine probably not, considering it wouldn't do a whole lot against the army that's coming out from the Protoss right now, which has been largely drops and largely things like disruptors and things of that nature, which won't really take too much damage. Here's the disruptors coming in right now. The Zerg does notice, and not a whole lot done here. What you really hope from the Zerg is that you're able to find some way to take these things out. So it's going to get incrementally more annoying, especially with the Warp Prism here. So you almost wonder if you're going to see Vipers trying to pull that in. And here's the Swarm Host deploying their Locusts across this little chasm right here. The swarm hosts are burrowed on the other side, so the locusts can fly and land over there. So much action going on right now. The disruptors do come back in here and try to kill some more drones. Both disruptors get killed though, but still a hefty number of workers killed on either side. These swarm hosts take forever to recharge these, by the way, so it's nowhere near Heart of the Swarm. It's actually about double the time, so just waiting a long time, and you do have to spawn these manually, so you can't just let these things sit around and do nothing. Oracle dropping some stasis wards here, stasis mines, whatever you want to call them. And you'll notice they did not turn off the auto-casting, at least as far as I can tell. So these will just automatically activate whenever they see anything from the Zerg. Zerg's going to cancel this Nexus, and actually no cancel at all, it just gets killed. So a lot of Oracles on the map right now. It's going to be Oracle Disruptor pretty much. Blink is on the way as well. A Hive for the Zerg. More Disruptor drops here in the main. Doesn't look like it killed too much. Looks like mostly targeting larva, since there is basically no larva here. But it's just so much stuff going on here all the time. Few Oracles heading out by themselves, maybe going to try to do some weird stasis ward shenanigans, but with this many Oracles, you can start thinking about just targeting down drones in mass numbers. Disruptor drop once again, does just go ahead and activate it and run in here into the worker line. Killing a handful of drones here, not too bad, but of course, if all you're expending with this is APM, then it's not a big deal. He does finally get the Warp Prism though, and by he, I mean the collection of Destiny and Kaitlyn, so I need some word to describe both a guy and a girl at the same time. Not that it really matters too much, but Disruptor coming up here to waste these Hydras, does get 3 of them right away, loaded back into the Warp Prism. You can see that crazy Warp Prism load-in range here coming into effect once again, trying to keep these things alive. That's been something that's been popular, is always carting your Disruptors around. By the way, a little sloppy here trying to, from both sides actually, not really noticing these Hydras are still there, and the Hydra's kind of walking in. By the way, look how fast these units that are warping in die to just one Hydra. Pretty crazy. Can see that the stasis mine did go off here, so these swarm hosts are basically trapped, and you can see the Locust trying to just catch up to all these units, but not a lot happening here from the Zerg that's been any good for the last little bit. Trying to target down these swarm hosts. Swarm hosts are actually pretty speedy. Wow, I'm surprised at how fast these guys move now. You can see they did get a speed upgrade. Not really many people paid that too much attention to them, but these guys are fast. Disruptor does come back in, get a decent amount of kills, not too much. You can see there's a big clump of drones over here, and that Disruptor does just go ahead and get killed after it drops it out. Look how many mines are on the map right now. You can see there's just mines being placed pretty much everywhere, and that's not a bad idea considering if you happen to grab a big chunk of Zerg units and you can just start to get massive Disruptor detonations. Looks like swarm hosts are dropping off their locusts. They were rallied in a really weird place. With Blink, he should be able to chase these things down, but look how fast these guys are. They're actually almost as fast as Stalkers, which is crazy, because Stalkers are one of the fastest ground units in the whole game, aside from things like Zerglings, obviously. So, weird game. Once again, guys, people don't really know how to play this game quite yet, just because they want to play around with new stuff. So, we're going to see some weird games for quite a long while, and I have to say, this has been a pretty weird, very harassment-heavy game so far. But Oracle's just still trying to poke around here, laying just tons and tons of mines. And the Zerg really needs to start bringing an Overseer with them. So they do have an Overseer with their army right now. And you can definitely see those mines, and at very minimum just cause them to be avoided. They can actually be attacked, so I have to correct myself and say that you can just go ahead and kill them if you realize what's going on. And yeah, you can see him go ahead and kill that. All it was energy anyway, so it's not that big of a loss from the Protoss perspective. Disruptor getting more kills here, by the way. A lot of Vipers out on the map right now, and with pulls and whatnot into these Hydras, especially with this many Oracles, this should be pretty brutal. To say Zerg is actually in a pretty decent position right now, whereas before it didn't seem like it. He needs more Disruptors to kind of flank and abuse the clumpiness of this army right now, which is kind of what those Disruptors are designed for. But I have no idea where his army is, and it's just so hard to see stuff on this mini-map. They just blend in so well with the background here. They really need to change that back to how it was. It's really confusing to look at. But it looks like a mine did get tripped or killed or something. I'm not really used to all the sounds and what they mean yet. But a lot of stuff coming in here. Here's a Disruptor being loaded into the Warp Prism. And if you can just get a good hit on this Disruptor, you'll be surprised at how much this actually kills. So the composition right now is basically just one Disruptor waiting to get that money shot on the entire Zerg army, and a bunch of Blink Stalkers that can just keep themselves alive. So you can see that just random bits of Protoss army really do stack up to be quite useful. That animation is really cool, by the way. Back when we saw them in the other ones, it's just like, oh, it appeared, okay, it's there. But cool stuff from the art side coming down here in Legacy of the Void. A random drone just sitting out in the middle of the map and it burrows. Lol. You can see, by the way, the Oracle did activate the Envision ability. I think that's Envision or Revelation. I can't remember what it's called, and it's not showing me on the HUD anymore. But basically, they combine the detection aspect and the Revelation aspect. You can see random little bits of units getting caught all over the place. And if these little bits of units get caught, you can just sit there and wait. And he's dropping even more little mines here, so if the Zerg tries to recover in, then he will get stasis even harder. But you can see he's just walking around. As soon as it ends, he can just kill those Zerg units pretty easily. What they really need to do, though, is they need to turn off the auto-casting on the mines and manually cast those. Finally, the creep spread from the Zerg starting to get out here, excuse me, a little bit, so starting to get a little bit more involved. I have to say, both sides' economies seem a little bit weak right now. It's 50 drones for the Zerg only and 74 for the Protoss, but you'd be amazed at how fast the bases mine out in this. You can see some idle workers hanging out here. He is trying to get up to these 3 fully mining bases, so a probe transfer coming down right now, but it can be hard to manage all this, and I'm really wondering how they decided to split these 2 priorities, in the sense that you basically do have to dedicate someone to doing random micro stuff and someone to dedicate to doing macro stuff. But the Stalkers start to blink in, trying to pick off a couple of Vipers. Swarm hosts running for their lives here. But I'm going to call this scurrying for their lives, because that's definitely kind of a scurry. Really fast movement on these guys. I'm really surprised at that. Something not really paid too much attention to, like I said before. These disruptor drops are still being annoying, though. And you can see the Vipers are finally starting to pull these disruptors here and there. And by the way, you don't want to do that because he could just turn it on if it was activated. You can see it's not activated right now. Swarmhost just AFKing right now. He just drops the Locust. Gonna go ahead and kill those. You can see they do fly and then land right on top of it. Stalkers blink straight up here, and they're gonna grab a couple of these Locusts, or rather a couple of these Swarmhosts, and some tech before they have to blink out of there. As you can see, the Zerg is still very strong. Oracle's starting to just plant mines in the middle of this battle. And if he gets this off, huge stasis all over this army right now. The Ultralists look like they're immune to those mines as well, considering they do have that frenzied ability. So this is getting a little bit weird, but it's interesting to know that the Ultralists are not affected by that. At the very least, at least that gave the Blinkstalkers a chance to retreat. But again, I have to stress that you should probably be mixing in a little bit more Disruptor into this army, rather than using it so much for harass, because if he's able to ever just get one big stasis and then one big disruptor hit, it would just decimate the army. But these battles are starting to get pretty wild. You can see it's growing pretty far out of control. Disruptor does just roll in here trying to get a big pack of stuff. And the disruptor went off, but they got hit by a stasis mine. That's why you want to have these things not on autocast, so that you can grab them as necessary, because that really screwed up his disruptor hit. But kind of an interesting interaction there, not really one I'd ever considered. And once these things wear out, Protoss should be able to kill this, kind of being a little bit lackadaisical about targeting that. You can see the Disruptor does eventually just roll in there and blow up a few units. This game is so weird, though. It's so weird to see how many mines are on the map. There's just still tons of them all over the place, and the Zergs are constantly tripping them. You can see them making a little bit more of an effort to try and clear this out. But these Blinkstalkers, with their mobility and with being able to lock stuff down, can get a lot of stuff done. We're going to see a big tech switch here in the near future, by the way, guys. 3 more Stargates on the way. I don't think that they have a fleet beacon, though, so they will need to go ahead and grab that fleet beacon if they want to start getting important production off of those, which is probably going to be carriers. Could be things like Tempest, maybe experimenting with that disintegrate ability just a little bit. Maybe it's just Void Rays, I don't know. Ultralisk just plowing through these mines right now. And a big hit here on these mines, so I guess if you're Zerg and you're in the late game, you can just, roam around with your one Ultra and just ruin everything if you wanted to mess up these mines, especially if they're on autocast like they are right now. Which again, I can't stress enough why is the reasoning as to why you want to turn these things off, because otherwise they'll just get wasted on one unit. And it's not that big of a deal, because it does just cost energy, but at the same time you want these to be as efficient as possible. Immortal's coming out right now to start trying to deal with these Ultras, but I have to think that eventually the right answer is going to be Disruptor plus a lot of Stargate units. So we'll have to see what they're going to be producing. There's that fleet beacon on the way now, and I don't know why I just zoomed in on just a teal blob, but whatever. A couple of Zealots coming out here. They're going to get shut down really easily by these flying Locusts and by the Hydras, so they get wrecked pretty easily. Starting to clear up some creep a little bit is the Protoss player. Once again, I have to stress that the Zerg economy doesn't look that great right now, as they are behind in supply. Protoss has a huge bank. You can see that the income only on 54 drones right now, so starting to get a little bit rough. Nidus network on the way, so maybe a little bit of ultra Nidus action could be happening. By the way, these warpins are so slow. You could see that Hydra killing a whole bunch of stuff before. But a big attack here. Protoss does just go ahead and disengage. And this is an interesting style. This is really cool because notice the complete lack of splash damage in this army, aside from the occasional disruptor hanging out every once in a while. But the point being is that he's just running strictly a harassment-centric style in the sense that he'll poke in there with his blink stalkers, run away, and if the Zerg tries to chase, he'll start tripping these mines. So a lot of cutesy little stuff that you can do with these mines and whatnot, in combination with things like blink and a very mobile army. Here's the crackling upgrade, and finally we can call these true crackling upgrades because the amount of speed bonus it gets from the previous iterations of StarCraft has been basically doubled. So crackling should be pretty insane, especially against a Stalker army like this. So if this Stalker army ever gets surrounded by Lings, it's probably just going to be game over. But again, I have to stress that the Zerg just doesn't have the economy right now to support this. Ultra's going to trip mines once again. Stalkers are just going to start getting wrecked. More mines being tripped, only grabbing one roach. So, I don't know how many times I need to say this, but guys, turn off the auto-casting on the mines. You can activate them manually. Phoenix range on the way. Pretty much every upgrade should be getting researched by this stage of the game as we are at 21 minutes. And by the way, 21 minutes in Legacy of the Void is equivalent to, I would say, roughly about 30 to 35 range in the previous one. So this is definitely going super late game. But I have to do nothing but worry about the Zerg because they just don't have the economy right now. Whereas the Protoss, if they ever lose their army, they can just remake a ton at a moment's notice. By the way, Nidus Worm going to be popping up here in just a sec, and a big change to this is these things can't be attacked while they're warping in. So the Protoss does realize what's going on here, but they're not going to be able to react in time. Only Zerglings in this though, so nothing too crazy. These are Cracklings though. That upgrade did finish, so they should actually wreck through these units pretty hard. And recovering to this is going to be pretty hard as well because it's going to take them a while to walk across the map. Fortunately, with the Blink and the Oracles, you can get over there in a reasonable amount of time, but still, you can do some weird shenanigans with these Nidus Worms where you could possibly place one here and then one here and not really give the Protoss a right option with either one of these. So, another Disruptor coming in. The Viper pull just didn't do anything on this, and that's just because the Disruptors are immune to basically everything while it's in that mode. And right now, trying to mess up the Warp Prism, definitely don't want to load this thing in there for the time being, so you might want to try to get that out of there. Not really a lot of attention being paid, such an awkward little exchange here, and finally it goes down. Does manage to drop it and reactivate it though. Just going to kill a reasonable amount of drones. Looks like a handful more, maybe 3 or 4. Another Nidus Worm on the way. Meanwhile, the Blink Stalker's doing a lot of damage over here. He can recall any time, so he could actually recall back to this base. He's probably going to need to here in just a second, as there's some stuff going to be poured out of this Nidus network here in just a sec. You should see Hydras coming out here any second, but there is a pretty reasonable fight here. A couple stasis going off here, but the Ultralisk, again, totally ignore that. Another stasis happening here. Oracle is just kind of sitting in the middle of this battle, just stasising everything except for the Ultras. Did he lose his Mothership Core? I think he did, so this army is stuck right now. But again, it's not that big of a deal, because if he loses this army, he can just remake it at a moment's notice. This Nidus Worm, unfortunately, getting killed by Zealots, not really paying too much attention to that Nidus over there, was the Zerg team. By the way, carriers are in production right now, and there should be a switch into that. I don't think these Stalkers really matter too much anymore, and even encouraging more things like Ultras or Lings is going to be a good thing once he switches. This Disruptor just got an insane amount of kills. He's at 33 right now, 88 workers killed, as you guys can see from the Protoss team. So the Zerg's economy is definitely in shambles right now, but I wish we would have seen that hit of the Disruptor blowing everything up. And you have to say that the Zerg is in a pretty bad spot right now, especially with these carriers starting to be incremented out. Don't they have a 4th Stargate? I was pretty sure that they did. Yeah, they do. What's the 3rd one making? Oh, an Oracle. Duh. It says right there. Herp derp. Another Disruptor blowing up a ton of stuff here. So the Zerg's economy is a mess. 21 drones right now. Such a huge disadvantage for the Zerg economically. There's random Zealots all over the map hitting these hatcheries. You gotta say Zerg is pretty much dead right now, as they don't really have a lot of answers anymore, especially as these carriers start coming out. You can see the carriers did get a little bit of a speed upgrade as well, so they are pretty speedy as well as having all the new upgrades and new build times, stuff like that. So carrier's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And honestly, these carriers are so strong they'll probably just win the game from this point forward. One interesting thing I don't know yet is if Vipers can actually target their ability of, I think it's some type of bomb. I can't remember the name of it, but I wonder if they can actually target interceptors with that, which would be a really good response to a lot of the carrier play that we see. It looks like Swarm Host dropping a few more Locusts here over as well, but the Zerg is just such in shambles right now. The Protoss should be able to close this out fairly quickly and fairly soon. It's just going to take one attack from these carriers. There's really not that much to answer these right now. 18 Hydras versus these carriers. It looks like the carriers only have +2 attack, +1 shields, but even still, that in combination with stasis, in combination with disruptors, there's just not a whole lot the Zerg should be able to do to stop this once this carrier count continues to grow. 4 carriers on the way at a time, +3 air on the way, +2 shields, I believe that upgrade is, and again, some UI bugs. I can't for sure tell what that is by just clicking on it or mousing over it, so that's unfortunate. But still, this army is terrifying from the Protoss. You could actually even turn on these Oracles for the attack to help out with these Hydras and probably just mow through this force, but we'll have to see. You can see the Locusts can be hit while they're still in the air too, so if you happen to have stuff over there that's able to do that, there's going to be a big disruptor hit if he's paying attention, but it looks like he's not. He actually pulls the Warp Prism in, but a giant fight going on right now, and the carriers are just going to be wrecking absolutely everything. So you can see they do kind of plow through those Hydras fairly easily. Carriers have always kind of been this good when they get into a fight, guys. The issue is always just a matter of getting that many on the field in a reasonable amount of time. A bunch of Zerglings over here are going to get wasted by the stasis. It looks like another drop just happened here. I wish I could see how many kills that Disruptor has. And it's hard to see so much action on the map at the same time, guys, so I apologize if I'm missing a whole bunch of things. But another Disruptor drop is going to be happening. Going to be heading over with a small amount of drones here, kind of just adding insult to injury considering how far down the Zerg already is in economy. And this Disruptor's just like, alright, whatever, I don't care. This is still kind of a close game in a little bit of a sense, but the Zerg is just so far behind in economy, still on 21 drones right now, whereas the Protoss is on a healthy 50 and has more expansions here. The Zerg is just really hurting for income, and especially since a lot of their bases have just been so decimated by these counterattacks and whatnot. Look how many carriers there are right now. This is 11 carriers with +3 attacks, so these carriers are going to plow through everything, and it's really just a matter of time before the Zerg decides that they're dead. Here comes another Disruptor drop. Looks like it's not really having any attention paid to it. He does just go ahead and turn it on, heading for a pack of Hydras here. Some decent splits, only killing about 4 Hydras, so not the greatest trade, but still, it tends to cease to matter at this point, as these carriers are just going to be unstoppable with these type of upgrades, and with this few amount of anti-air units for Zerg. You have to wonder, though, if these if these Vipers can land those attacks on the interceptors. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's some type of bomb. It's like parasitic bomb, I think is what it is, which basically just kills everything in the area that's an air unit. I'm not sure if it's friendly fire or not. I think it's just for enemy units, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, we'll see if that does get used here. As you can see, the Vipers kind of hanging out here. They do need to be careful. Honestly, if I were these carriers, I would just deploy the interceptors in their mode and just say whatever and retreat with them, or maybe recall and just say, you know what, that's good enough. You can see the carriers' interceptors are all being killed by the parasitic bomb ability, so you can see they are targeted. But the carriers, there's still just way too many. He's being a little bit conservative about deploying them all at once. The carrier is just wrecking through this army right now, even though they're all at about half capacity. So, just in case you guys were wondering, 14 carriers are good units. And they will plow through Zerg fairly easily. So, kind of just a overall big giant wear down on Protoss throughout the whole stage of this game. Look how many transfuses are on these queens, by the way, keeping all this stuff alive. Another Disruptor drop, again, just a total kick in the pants for somebody that's already behind this far in economy. Does deal a lot of damage and get out of there. There's really almost nothing left. The only saving grace right now for the Zerg is that there's so few interceptors, and they are taking a little while to build. Hence, that's why there are no minerals for the Protoss. But the Zerg team does just say GG and leave the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed a very preliminary broadcast of Legacy of the Void Beta Archon mode. And once again, you guys can see that the game time does match the real time, as we're at 29 minutes and 20 seconds in the game and about 30 minutes on the video. So the timings are weird, and by the scale of this game, this would have been about a 40 to 45 minute game in the old versions of StarCraft. So pretty intense and long game there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know down below if you guys have any comments or questions about any of the Legacy to Void units. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I'll be back with more replays, more of my own games, more analysis videos, all kinds of fun stuff in the future. So definitely subscribe if you want to see more content from me. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in the very near future. So thanks for watching, and take care.